Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm ready, and we're recording. Welcome to week 2 of Pure Lifestyle.
We always look so happy and smiling at the start. Like,
We are.
I know, but it's just because we anticipate that start.
So this week we're looking at being accountable to what you're eating, tracking calories, and this week is going to be an eye opener for a lot of people. And even I still get a bit of an eye opener when I really look at my calorie intake and see what I'm taking, what I'm consuming, and kind of surprises about things that you might not even think of as food, maybe, or think of as having calories that can add up so much. And I honestly think that for most people who don't think that much yet about what they're eating, simply being conscious of that and then looking at little swaps they can make is enough to create a pretty decent sized deficit.
Yeah, do you know what? It's huge. Like, it is self awareness, isn't it? Like, the reason why we ask you to report into either a food diary, into your phone, like in the notes in your phone with the food that you consume and the drink that you consume, or MyFitnessPal, is because it gives you the opportunity to have that self awareness. And like Emma's just said, me doing this for probably 10 plus years, tracking or writing down my food, there's still stuff now that I'll input to MyFitnessPal and I think, oh my God, like, I really didn't expect that. And the majority of the time that happens is normally when I'm on the go and grabbing something like a meal or some food on the go just for snack or anything like that takes up so many calories that I never would have thought in the past that probably I would have deemed as healthy as well. And what I mean by healthy is like low in calories. Yeah, so there's going to be some massive learnings from this week. And once you get to grips with the amount of calories that you need to consume, once your coach has gone through that with you or you maybe calculated it through the weekly emails that you've got, you're going to, off the back of that, have some really eye-opening moments probably.
Yeah, and I think you'll then realise as well that your food choices are so important and that actually this is where the kind of myth comes from that a lot of people say, oh, I'm eating more, but I'm losing weight.
Yeah.
And the point is they've been shown food choices that are going to allow them to eat just as bigger portions, if not bigger portions, but still lose weight. Because, like, I think the example that came to my head when you were talking was that, yeah, you might, don't know, get a meal deal at Tesco, but one meal deal can be like triple the calories of another meal deal. If you know how to make good choices and you're accountable to them, and you're a little bit savvy there, you can be in a deficit quite easily. And the same is true with when you're making meals. So the obvious example is like, don't know, big starchy pasta portions. If you cut half the pasta out and replace it with veg, not only are you getting more nutrients, your meal actually looks more appetizing. Takes you just the same amount of time to eat because it's big portion size, and you're saving a hell of a lot of calories. There are loads and loads of like easy little tricks you can do that can save you calories without you really thinking about dieting or without using any of that willpower.
Yeah, and I think I was just kind of going through my head about the tricks that of groups that I've worked with in the past on Pure Lifestyle. And I think what's more powerful of this is when you've gone off and you've spent a week of inputting food into your app on MyFitnessPal, the reason why it's a little bit more powerful in regards to self-awareness is you start to recognize your own behaviors that I think, oh my God, that's in my week every single week. And it actually takes me into a surplus because that's spiraled out of control or whatever that may be. It might be that you've realized, and this is the most popular one for me, is that the majority of your calories are made up from snacks. So when you're in work, you'll eat in a healthier way. And what I mean by that is you might opt for kind of porridge on the way to work in the morning and a black coffee from Starbucks or wherever. And then your meal at lunch will be a salad, a chicken salad. And you think, right, that's really got you in the right mindset. You've gone to the gym, you've had a nice tea, and then you've looked back on your day. And in between that, there's been cups of tea or coffee alongside different snacks. And for the kind of hundreds and thousands of people I've worked with in the past, when it's come to fat loss, it's normally the snacks that have then made them go into a surplus of calories for that day or for that week.
Yeah, I can agree more. Like when When anyone asks me what a good snack is, like my honest opinion on snacks is that that is what ruins your diet. So yes, you can have like good snacks or snacks that fit into your calories or ones that are going to keep you fuller and are better choices. But in all honesty, if fat loss is the goal, my first, advice would be don't snack. Like, do not snack. Have 3 big meals and make them big enough and sit down, take your time and enjoy them rather than grabbing stuff on the go and snacking between. I never snack. That's like my one rule, is that I'll have big meals that I enjoy eating, but I won't snack in between. And that saves you so many calories, and it means that you don't have to have tiny little meals to stay within your calories.
No, and that kind of, the reason why I brought that up is, like, it's normally for people on the go. So that might be, let's say you've got spare time whilst waiting for in between trains or waiting for on a journey, or you just grab something alongside your coffee or the bottle of water that you've got, and you'll just perceive something to be, again, I'll say the word like healthy, and in your mind that's low in calories. But if you actually check into that or scan it into MyFitnessPal, it's probably the equivalent of a meal that you had for lunch. And for me, that's where it normally goes wrong. And then we can look at the majority of the times that people do over-consuming calories, and in general, that's normally in the evenings and at the weekends, isn't it? And at the weekends, that's a completely different story. We can talk about that in a minute. But like the majority of people eat or overeat in the weekend, in the evenings, more so out of, and in my opinion, that's out of boredom. Like, you've been through work, you might have had a bit of a crappy day, it might be a reward type mindset, or it might be your favourite program's on TV and you just chilled, and that then brings about drinks and biscuits or drinks and snacks or whatever that may be. And I think recognising that is huge, because that used to be a really big downfall of mine. It really was actually a downfall of mine, would be having my dinner about, 6, and then going till 11 o'clock trying to have no food is virtually impossible if you sat there doing nothing. And you're getting the kids' drinks at random times coming in and out of the kitchen, and you're just completely discounting the fact that you may have, one part of theirs or a little bit of someone else's, and so on.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And just before we absolutely kill the snacking thing, I do want to say that I think, considering, like, okay, maybe you think I want a snack, okay, and an equivalent to that I'm going to use as a Subway salad. So it's only about 300 calories, probably a little bit less. Now, do you want a snack, or are you just bored? Because if you're hungry and you really want a snack, you'll eat that meal, the Subway salad, instead. Most people won't. They're like, oh no, I just want a little something. Right, well, if you just want a little something, you can wait till dinner. And I guess the typical thing with your mum would always be like, oh, Mum, I really want, like, a snack. Can I have some crisps? No, you can have an apple.
Yeah.
And, like, if you're not willing to eat an apple, you're not hungry. If you're not willing to go and have another meal, like a Subway salad, you're not actually hungry. You're probably just bored, or you just fancy something for the sake of it.
Yeah, and all of this comes in a way of, like, if you really just get managing your calories from the off, then this conversation is completely irrelevant, because you'll be able to have your snacks and how to accompany them into your diet, and then how to make sure you've got enough protein in your 3 main meals, and maybe one of your snacks is a protein shake to get more protein in, and so on. Once you get it, like, it doesn't become such a big thing. But at first, for me, a real quick win is having the self-awareness of snacks.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the good thing as well is that there's so much research to show that even so this week, if you've not really dieted before, you've not tracked your calories before, just the actual act of tracking calories is usually enough to make people eat less anyway, and then they end up losing weight anyway. So
1,000,000%.
Just being aware that you're like, oh, if I have this biscuit, I'll have to put it into MyFitnessPal. And you're like, do I really want it? Like, usually I would have just had it without thinking. But now there's that, like, conscious process, and actually I'm going to have to put it in here and look it up if I want it. And then you think, I don't really want it. It was literally just because it was there, and it's like habit. So that's a really good one. And I think you touched on eating in the evening as well. And that does tend to be where everyone falls off. They have this brilliant day that they've set out really well. I know what I'm having for my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner. I've been really busy at work all day, so I've just had those meals. Evening comes, and that's when everything starts going wrong, because you just sit there mindlessly eating.
And normally mindlessly eating on something that you potentially enjoy and then over-consuming that. Like, I had one in the group that I had regards to, it was like a chocolate brownie fibre bar, and they bought a box, and their downfall was that they bought a box and put it at one at home and one at work because it was a low-calorie snack. But then they were having 3 of them a day because there were 6 in a box or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that had become, they've not took away, I've not told them to take away chocolate, they've took it away from themselves, and this is a low-calorie version, but it's still chocolate. So if it's hyperpalatable, it's hyperpalatable, and you're going to just smash through the box. So it ends up being a 300-calorie snack.
Yeah, exactly. Portion control is always going to be huge as well. And yeah, I guess it's good to have these little snacks there if you feel like you want them. But again, just as like a small piece of the big puzzle, I guess.
Yeah, and then I suppose we touched on it a minute ago regards to managing calories. So at this point of this week, you'll get managing your calories, and something that, like, we're talking about measuring and reporting in the calories and MyFitnessPal and so on. That alone is hard to stay consistent with, and you need to recognise that from the off. It's not something that you should be doing forever. And if you watch the week 2 video, I think we actually talk about that, that it's not something we want people to do forever. Like, it's virtually impossible to do that.
Yeah, it's a really good tool.
Yeah,
a really good tool for making you aware of what you're consuming when you're consuming it. But absolutely, you do not have to track forever.
No, and then you just touched on then kind of most people overconsume in the evenings and at the weekends. And then once you understand how to manage your calories, you'll understand then that it's not about kind of cutting out the foods or the drink that you enjoy, or you can't have a social life anymore. Once you understand how to balance that and maybe look at your calories over a week, and how your weekend then fits in, you just start to plan better off the back of being self-aware of what you consume and overconsume.
I agree.
What about some quick wins? So obviously we've talked about snacking as a quick win to be self-aware of and maybe reduce. What about some other quick wins for them to kind of grab and take away?
So top of my head, like, number 1 is stop snacking. Number 2 is condiments really add up. So there are certain condiments that are going to be far less calories than others. Check them. There are also, and they used to be, well, actually, there's loads and loads of, like, skinny versions of condiments. And most of them that I tried, like, a couple of years ago were disgusting. Like, just tasted like chemicals. But there's actually some really good ones now. Like, I love ketchup, and you can now get this ketchup. I think it's just called skinny ketchup, but it's like 5 calories. So for like a whole big square of it. So that's a good thing. Mayonnaise is really calorie dense. So things like that can really add up. And also we don't tend to weigh them out. And often you'll look at like, oh, this is a serving of mayonnaise. Is it? Like, do you know how much a serving is? Like, I don't off the top of my head. Like, and I don't know what that looks like on a spoon, or if you're squirting it out and you don't want to like squirt out ketchup onto a spoon and it go everywhere, you know, all these things. So I would probably overestimate your condiments because your serving sizes might not be quite right. So condiments, drinks, a lot of people just completely disregard drinks because they're not food. So how could they possibly have calories? Well, they do. Coffees, so like any sort of milk and things and coffees. Some people drink like 5-6 cups of tea a day. If you're having milk and sugar in them, it does really start to add up. So I think just being accountable and aware of everything, and that's the whole point in this week, is to use tracking as a tool to kind of prove to yourself all these little things that can add up, and then that just makes you more aware of that. It doesn't mean that you have to track them forever, but once you track them once, you'll realize that, oh, okay, well, each of my cups of tea is like 25 calories. If I'm having like 6 a day, actually, that adds up to quite a lot. So am I going to have some of them black, or am I going to just cut a few of them down, or am I going to swap them for water, or whatever it might be?
Yeah, and my mind's gone blank now, but I was just about to add, what was I going to say then at the end? Oh, I can't remember. My head's gone.
Must have been really important.
I know, it was as well. What was I thinking? This is what I was about to say. So one of my group, quite a lot actually in my group, then always, once they get behind the tracking, they found this new app, and actually some of them quite enjoy it, don't they, at first, especially scanning it in and finding what things are suitable for them and so on. They then start to get bogged down a little bit with because they've seen the protein, carbs and fat split and so on, and kind of how MyFitnessPal dictates that. A lot of people then worry that, and I still had it like 3 or 4 weeks in, I'm not hitting my carb number, how can I get that? Or I'm going over on my fats, what can I do there? What would you kind of say on that for people?
Yeah, this is a huge one that people get really bogged down on sticking to.
Told you it was good.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was worth the wait. Sticking to their carbohydrate and fat ratios. And I purposely don't give these out because I want you to have a varied diet. Now, if I set you a protein, carbohydrate, and fat target within a calorie target, it gets really hard to hit those consistently unless you eat exactly the same thing every day. Now, that becomes a problem because A, you will get bored of it, and B, it gives you really no flexibility. And then most importantly, C, we know that variety in your diet is actually really important for your gut health and then your overall health in general. So you need a varied diet. It doesn't matter if you get the quote-unquote perfect meal plan for the day and it has 5 fruit and veg in and all this. That's fine, but you'll still be eating those same 5 fruit and veg every day, or those same carbohydrate sources every day, and the same sources of protein every day. So being able to be flexible with your fats and carbs allows you to be more flexible with your choices. And the example I always give out, because it's what's the most applicable to me, is that I have oily fish about 3 or 4 times a week. Now, on the days that I do, so that's something like salmon, my calories that come from fats are much higher, because if I'm not having salmon, I might have chicken, which is very low in fat. So salmon has more fat in, but it's good fat for me. And, you know, like oily fish is a really good food to be including in your diet. But on those days, I'll have higher fats and lower carbs. Now, on other days, I might have higher carbs and lower fats. It doesn't matter, because what is going to dictate my fat loss is the amount of protein I have, so that I'm maintaining as much lean muscle mass as possible, and the calorie deficit I'm in.
Amen.
Amen.
The only last thing I was going to touch on is, if you're fairly busy and really struggle to keep up with filling in your meals in MyFitnessPal, a really, really quick win is every time you have something to eat, just take a photo of it, and then at night, when you are sat there aimlessly, potentially snacking, start to put your calories into MyFitnessPal then. It's always good to try and do it beforehand, but who's that prepared these days? It just doesn't happen. So yeah, take photos of your food and come back and kind of sit there at night and kind of put your calories in for the day. Or obviously the really good feature on MyFitnessPal is scanning it in. Now, it also does do well in reminding you when you've missed a meal from inputting your calories and so on, and inputting that meal. So it is good for reminding you, but obviously if you are busy, then that good tool of taking the photo is good. If you are struggling to keep up with using MyFitnessPal, or you can't use it at all, there's many, many different alternatives that you could do, and I'd hope to think that your coach is armed with them. And if they're not, and you've discussed it, or you've been on Pure Lifestyle before, and you don't know what they are, just comment in the kind of video below, and we can kind of help you with different alternatives to tracking in MyFitnessPal. Yeah,
we can maybe cover that next week. And I think the point is as well that you don't need to track for these 6 weeks, you know, but we do want everyone, no matter if you decide to take a completely different approach, like maybe you want to go low carb, or maybe you want to go low fat, or maybe you want to try intermittent fasting. All these things are fine to do, but I still want you to track for at least like 3 or 4 days, and why not just do it for the week? And I know that it becomes a bit monotonous and boring for a lot of people. That's fine. It's not for me. I don't do it because it's really boring for me. and I don't like being on my phone that much. I'm already on it enough. But it's such a good tool to make you aware of what is in food.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. All right, should we wrap it up there?
Yes, and we will speak to you next week.